thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Meara, Karen Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Karen Smith.
I'm Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cindy O'Meara.
And today we've got a really special guest on the show, and Kimmy's going to give you guys a bit of an intro to the beautiful Suzi Fanue. She's a local resident here on the Sunshine Coast. She's a naturopath, she's a medical herbalist, she's a nutritionist, she's a speaker, she's an educator. She's somebody who is fairly prolific in terms of getting her message out to the public. And I think, Kimmy, you spent some time with Suzi last night at a specific event, and I think it's really a good segue into what today's show is all about. So take it, girlfriend, take it.
We did. We had a beautiful night last night. Suzi and I have got very close, especially over the last year. We do a lot of work together on helping each other build our businesses. I love her philosophy. You're both going to love her. I know you know of her, but it's so cool to introduce her to our listeners. But Suzi took it upon herself not long ago to share a film or to create a screening of a new film and a documentary that's out there called Embrace, which I'll get Suzi to explain where and why she wanted to do this. But it was really, the real key message in behind it. We both went to it last night and we both spoke at the event, was around women's body image. And I really enjoyed the message and where this woman has taken it. And I think, Suzi, it would be really cool to, first of all, introduce yourself and maybe give us your background and then head into why you put on that show last night. So welcome to the show, beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I guess, Embrace for me was, I felt it was such an important documentary that really every single person should see. It was really focused around women's body image, but there was a part that I kind of, after I was thinking, you know what, it's not just about women and it's not just about the curves, it's about everyone. And I guess as a naturopath, it's an area that I'm really passionate about, you know, the body image, the confidence, the self-care, because I believe that's where good health comes from. It all goes back to that self-care. So for me as a naturopath, I just felt that you know what, I need to show this, and I need people to really start embracing themselves, start loving themselves, and from love, I believe that's where health comes from. So that's pretty much why I decided to do it. And I'm sure, Kim, as you were there, you've seen the emotions and you've seen, you know, how many people are leaving, and they were so happy and grateful that we decided to screen it.
Yeah, I think it was a very strong, beautiful message around women's health. But I have to be honest with you, a couple of times it really upset me. I didn't realize just how much and how many women hate their bodies, or the word that kept coming up was disgusting. They were disgusted by their body, and yet they were looking happy, able, looking amazing women. But yeah, I think it was definitely something, and I would love to delve into this more with you around your clients and health and wellness. But I know the girls, before we go there, just tell us your little story as to how you got to becoming a naturopath, because your health story in itself will all come back to this whole beautiful message.
Yeah, definitely. So as a child, I always thought it was normal to be unhealthy and to, I guess, you know, loathe your body, to be sad and to spend a lot of time in hospital. Every time I tell this story, and Kim, as you all know, I hold my heart to my chest, because it actually can even be emotionally overwhelming for me to tell the story. But essentially, when I was 9 years of age, my mum passed away, and my grandfather passed away from the same thing, and it was the same thing that I was continually in hospital for. So at the age of 14, and I just decided, you know what, this is enough. I can't keep living my life like this. And I went to the library and I got, every week I would go back, or every 2 weeks. I can't remember how long you could borrow books for back then. And I would get tons of books, and the books are all, about using your garden to heal yourself, things like aromatherapy and organic living and physiology, kinesiology, you name it, I was reading it. And so after that, I ended up to go, once I finished school, I saved enough money, moved to Queensland and decided to study a biomedical degree. And I look back at it and I'm kind of like, why did I decide to do that? Because essentially that wasn't really the approach that was my healing journey. And so partway through, I got a scholarship at the lab at the uni. And while I'm so incredibly grateful that I got that opportunity, because it opened up my eyes. It helped me to see that, you know what, me working here doing this, it is helping, but ill health doesn't happen just from one biochemical imbalance. It's usually happened as a result of the way the person has lived, their thought processes, and what they're essentially eating. So I wanted to find a cure. I didn't know what I wanted to find a cure for. I just knew that I wanted to help people to kind of go through that healing process that I went through. And so then I guess it's those principles that really attracted me to naturopathy. So then I went on to study naturopathy. And so after 5.5 years studying and, having the clinic for 3 years, I'm doing now what I love doing. And, our team is really making such a positive change on the coast. So really in what I feel like is I'm in the wellness industry now, where before I felt that I was kind of almost going down the career path of the sickness industry, which is it's optimal health that everybody wants. So that's pretty much how I came to do what I do. And most naturopaths, it's exactly the same. They've usually got, or most health professionals actually, they've usually got their own story or the reason they do what they do.
Suzi, what was the condition that was making you so sick and your mum passing away? Was it genetically based? What was that?
It was asthma, believe it or not.
Oh,
gee. It was asthma. Yeah. So often me and my mum, when I was a child, we would often be in hospital together. And then when she passed away at the age of 9, there was a strong, psychological shift with that, because I was there when she passed away. Because it happened quite sudden at home. And so after that, with all the emotions, and then I was pumped with steroids, and it was just a big downhill spiral from there, and intensive care and all sorts of things. So I really feel for, particularly with teenagers. I love educating teenagers, and I love seeing teenagers come into the clinic, because I really believe that, their brain is still remodeling. They're still learning, what are their belief systems, and, I believe at that age you can really empower someone to make change for the rest of their life. So to cut a long story short, it was asthma.
I think this next generation coming through is really opening their eyes. I think the baby boomers were people who just saw excess in everything and convenience, and we just went along for the ride not knowing the consequences and believing that the right thing was happening. And then X was just a part of that upbringing. And I'm finding that the Generation Y, the 20-year-olds, especially the 18-year-olds, are just, and even 16-year-olds are just, they're realising that we've screwed it up and we've got to make changes. So it's heartening, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
I guess that is something that sorry.
No, what I was going to say, Kim, was to go on to the next thing. So if you have something to add to that, go for it.
No, I was just interested to actually hear what there's so much internet right now that is about body image and, particularly women. And I think that it's been really interesting to actually watch all of the videos and how everything is being linked to some of society's greatest issues around rape, abuse, and domestic violence, and, how a woman needs to look a certain way in order to get noticed by men, and the way she dresses for men. And I saw a video this morning on Facebook that was kids, young girls, dropping the F-bomb every second word, saying, F that, I'm not going to be cast into society's mold of what I should and shouldn't look like just so that then I don't get raped. Teach our boys not to rape. Teach our boys to respect men. And I thought, wow, it's kind of going through all of the generations right now where there's this great fury about body image and what we look like and what we're supposed to look like. But it's interesting, though, that girls are still starving themselves. They're still going through eating disorders. They're still trying to look a certain way, and there's still this huge, big focus on weight loss. And it struck me that I even had a conversation with my Matt the other day, and I said to him, for the first time looking in the mirror, and I don't fancy what I'm seeing in there, like this whole perimenopause thing of, things going a bit out of shape and a bit sideways and a bit wobblier than what I'd ever expected. And he said to me, he said, oh, wow, he said, that's the first time I've ever heard you say you don't like yourself. And instantly my response was, no, I didn't say that I don't like myself. I really love myself. I think I'm pretty awesome. And I think I'm really funny. But I think it wasn't about that. It was like what I saw physically didn't fancy. And it was just really interesting for me to experience that at this age, which, right now in my life, in this phase of my life, feels quite heartless inside of myself to have said that, because it doesn't affect how I love myself, like myself. But I do remember in my younger years going through massive eating disorders and starving myself for extended periods of time. And there was probably 9 years of my life where I would starve myself for 5 days and then eat tomato and mayonnaise with cracked pepper on Sayo biscuits. And that would be all I would allow myself to eat for the 2 days. And then I'd go back to starving myself. And that was about 9 years of that, at least of that.
Wow.
And it was all because I wanted to be slim. I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be liked. And I just wonder if that whole mindset is still there, even though we've got this great push against it now that's going through all the generations of, young kids saying, dropping the F-bomb, all the way through to it's linked to domestic violence. We're only ever doing it to try and please our men or to try and make men like us or to try and fit in. We'll stuff that. Instead of looking for relationships, now I'm going to look for education, which seems to be the message that's out there right now. I'm intrigued by the conflict that exists underneath the surface of wanting to look good and feel good, and our attachment to this meaning we have to have a slim body, to what's the mental side of the damage that's being caused to us as a generation, today. I know that's a really long question.
Well, how long do we have?
Yeah, look, we've got an hour. But I just see it being masked differently. I think I see that the problem is still the same there. But we're just saying it's health now. And we're saying, I'm going to go for education and I'm going to go for health. But underneath it all, we're still having this need to fit in, this need to be liked, this need to look good and feel good. I just wonder if it's actually, if anything has changed, even though there's this big pushback saying, no, I don't care anymore. But underneath it's all the same.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of it is, so there is this whole, the low self-confidence as a whole, particularly in teenagers, and they do have a fair bit of responsibility. I mean, I'm only, how old am I? In my early 30s. And so if I went back, say, 15 years ago and compared to what the teenagers have on their plates now, it is so much greater. So when we're looking at, low body image, it's the same as health. When you're looking at, say, high blood pressure, you don't just look at what's causing the high blood pressure. You have to look at the whole picture. So when you're looking at, poor self-body image and, low self-confidence as a whole, you have to look at everything that's kind of factored in there. And that's, the people that they're around, the influences, the people who they spend the most time with. There's so many triggers that kind of come into it. I guess the way that I'd really love to see it is that, shifting away from that whole calorie counting. The calorie counting and low calorie diets, I feel have, and I'm sure that, Cindy would agree, they've stuffed up so many people. It's amazing how it's ingrained into people when teenagers will come into the clinic and they'll say, I'm having white toast with, I won't say brand, but one of those cholesterol lowering butter like things. And they're like, it's only got 100 calories or whatever it is. It's just quite amazing that so many people are still so embedded that, the less you eat, the less calories you eat, that can be smaller. So I feel that, going towards the approach of what Kim was talking, when she was talking last night to the crowd, she was saying, coming from an area of self-love, and if you truly understood how amazing that every single cell is in your body, you would do everything that you can to love it and essentially give it a hug. And so that, goes back to the dietary side of things, but we also need to have a look at, how's the person living? What are the belief systems of the parents? If we went back to the parents of my generation and, the younger generation, it's that whole calorie restriction, thin legs and, being really skinny. I feel that there's still, like, this generation is that the teenagers now are the ones that we really need to work on them, so that then the following generation, I feel that there's a lot more hope. There's parts of health that I feel are not going in the right direction, but there's parts that I truly believe are going in the right direction. So I don't know if that even answers your question. I kind of just went on a tangent just then.
No, I love it. And I do agree with you.
What areas do you really do think then are going in the right and wrong direction, Susie? What's your feeling as a naturopath?
Well, I really do feel that that young people in particular, or just actually everybody as a whole, is really starting to question, what they're actually putting in their mouth. I find it amazing when people come into the clinic and they're on these medications and they said, I asked the pharmacist, or, what's your advice? If you went back, say, I don't know, 20 years ago, no one questioned anything. They didn't question it, whereas now there is, a lot of there's a lot of information out there, films like Cindy's film, What's with Wheat. Just there's so much information where people are really starting to take it into their own hands. There's a whole thing, in the behind the scenes, with pharmaceutical companies and that sort of thing, that is maybe not going in the right direction, but I feel that people are starting to kind of, bring a little bit power back, and they're actually starting to think for themselves.
Another thing, Susie, that I'm thinking about is that the generation that has passed before our wives came, we believed everything we were told. We didn't think that anyone would cross us or use that it was all part of money. I think it was a belief. And so then I baby boomer, and so but I believe I was a very different baby boomer because my parents were very much aware of things. But I look at my friends who are my age now and their belief in the system and all that is happening out there, like statin drugs is a really good example, or calorie counting. When I learned about calorie counting back when I went to university to do my Bachelor of Science majoring in nutrition, it was for populations. It was never for an individual pursuit. And I think what's happened, because we are so sick and we have young mums and dads with babies who are just always sick, that I think there's a wake-up call happening and people are questioning. But we had this beautiful young lady on, Becky, I think it was last week we had her, and she talked about wanting to take responsibility for her health. And the doctor's scoffing at her and laughing at her and says, yes, you just face east and go see your so-and-sos and we'll just see how well you get. And I like, that's just, I don't know what to call that, but when Becky said, I think the three of us were in absolute shock that anybody would say that to a young woman, 27 years of age, who's asking questions. And I think you are right, is that this generation coming through and are asking questions and are not going to stick with what everybody's saying. I'm just seeing some powerful bloggers out there, very young bloggers, and getting on Facebook and just saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. You cannot do this to our anymore. We are going to make a stand. And I love it. I actually am loving seeing this questioning. But we do. It's time to question. And I think this is the age of, we're not going to take it anymore. Let's question what's happening. But I just want to go through the mother thing also for the baby boomers was when, weight started to go on. And I think the mother and the parents were starting to question themselves. And therefore the children saw that. And I'm just hoping this new generation is not going to see that, that it's going to stop at this point. But I may be wrong. Maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree. I really do.
Suzi, I want to ask you then to go, just to change tack, we can bring this back into it, but your love of biochemistry, and this is where Karen, I love listening to her when she talks about the science of the brain. I love listening to Cindy when she goes right down into bloody shikimate pathways, amino acids and whatever, ATP or whatever it is. Freaking love it. Don't understand it all the time, but I love it. When you speak about the science and the cells, and when we go into, tell us your passion in your particular field in naturopathy and how that relates to your love of the biomedical degree that you got and why you love looking down a microscope.
Well, I mean, as a naturopath, as I said at the beginning, we do look at the person as a whole, but I have, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of an obsession with like puzzles. I find it just so incredibly amazing how intelligent our bodies are and how every single pathway, it's like a puzzle. So when somebody comes to see me and they've got, like I said before, high blood pressure, say you've got high blood pressure, you don't just look at the blood pressure, be looking at every single possible thing that could be causing that blood pressure. So mentally I'm making a mind map. And then usually when the client sees like this big mind map, and it's quite amazing when you look at it from that way, that you see how incredible the body is, how complex it is, but yet how simple it is as well. I guess where, the pathology testing, I do quite a lot of pathology testing, and I feel like it's because it takes the guesswork out of the treatment. I get so I kind of feel for a lot of people when they've seen so many different practitioners and so many doctors, and they've had all the tests done, and just because someone has said their thyroid's fine, they're kind of like, okay, it's fine. They come to see me and they're questioning it. They're like, I really feel my thyroid's not right, even though I've been told that it's right. And then when you look at it, it's enough detail. It was, the TSH, which is basically the first part of the whole thyroid signaling process. But they haven't had, the T3, T4, reverse T3, the thyroid antibodies, the thyroid nutrients. It goes in a lot more detail than that. So I'm really interested in getting into that, that high level of detail, because the body it's incredibly complex, but at the same time it's simple. When you mind map it like that, blood pressure can be caused by, adrenal insufficiencies. It could be caused by electrolyte imbalances. It could be caused by, stress. There's just so many different things. It's not as simple as magnesium, your blood pressure will drop, or take this medication and it'll drop. It's not that simple. You've got to look at all the factors that come into it and every single pathway that could possibly influence it. So yeah, that's really why I'm just so passionate about that. I just remember when I did the biochemistry subject at university, and I was seriously blown away. I was blown away. So it's getting to that real detail. And I guess I'm I'm also a bit of a visual person as well. So I love seeing, the bell curves with the dots, and then explaining it to people what that bell curve means in real time, like explaining to them what that pathway is and how that pathway is essentially influencing the way that they feel, and then what nutrients can we use or what foods can we eat more of to correct those pathways. And so then that's then going back to putting the power into their hands. And a lot of people love seeing that, that solid reasoning for why they're feeling that the way that they are. Yeah.
I think the beauty of the work that you're doing, Suzi, is that you're giving people insight. You're giving people the why, the what, the how, and I guess also too the remedy and the answers to be able to experience their health and well-being in a different way, which is enormously valuable, because I think a lot of what you've done is a lot of your studies have been very holistic. Would that be right? Like, rather than just looking at the body piece by piece, you've been able to look at the body as a holistic experience.
Absolutely. Well, that was part of why, when I was doing the biomedical degree, that was why it was about halfway through that I went, you know what, this is just not for me. It's just not for me. It's not what helped me. It was almost going against my own personal beliefs, and really going back to what helped me. So yeah, the body, it's so complex. You can't just look at one area. That's really the whole principle of naturopathy.
Suzi, can you give one example? I loved your example at one of our talks we did recently around hormones. And a lot of women out there, according to Dr. Libby, in her 20 years of being a practitioner, she's only had one woman who's had the estrogen, and she has not suffered with estrogen dominance or had what she called a normal cycle. I know you're of the same ilk, where even though it's common to have all these hormonal imbalances, it's not normal. What is your belief around what's happening? Why are hormones becoming such a big issue for people? Why is estrogen dominance such a big thing? Why do we see things like PCOS and endometriosis and infertility? Can you give us a little theory or background as to what your thoughts are around the whole hormone side of things? Oh, your whole life's work in 5 minutes. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I summarize most illnesses or imbalances in the body. I always go back to 3 main principles. So how you're thinking, so your thought processes, your belief systems, and then how you're living, so what you're doing, so how are you moving, what's your work like, family time, and then how you're eating. So it goes back to those 3. Then when we're looking at hormonal imbalances, it's usually a combination of all 3 of those. I really feel that what I was saying before with the teenagers, I feel a lot of it stems back to that age. Teenagers now, and not just teenagers, all age groups. And Kim, you're an expert in this area. Environmentally, we're exposed to so many different compounds that are estrogen-like. We're exposed to so many different compounds that are affecting our liver pathways. We're exposed to so much stress, so much responsibility. The way that we're eating is not nutrient dense. And if you understood how hormones balance, they need that fine balance of nutrients. But one of the biggest areas that I really try and dig into is the stress response and the adrenals. When somebody is really busy, so it can even things that they're really enjoying doing. So it doesn't have to be, when I say, are you stressed or are you busy, people often think about things that they're not enjoying. So even if you're enjoying your job, but it's fair high pressure, lots of goals, lots of deadlines, your adrenals kind of run in overdrive. What happens with that is with time they start to decline. So when cortisol is high or low at both points, it's going to cause some sort of reproductive hormone imbalance. It's inevitable, because when one pathway goes out of balance, another one does. So, and then there's another area of hormones that I feel is hugely forgotten, and it's the digestive system. So the digestive system it's an elimination organ, and often when we think of elimination or detox, when I ask people the question, they often first think of the liver. But the gut is so important. There's trillions of bacteria there, and they have a strong role in the clearance of our hormones. So if there's a lack of the good bacteria like lactobacillus, you end up with really high levels of beta-glucuronidase. And then what happens is you end up with estrogen recirculation. So your body will try and get rid of it, and the liver's trying to do the right thing. But if that gut flora is not right, it'll just go back around again. So it's hugely multifaceted. So I always look at, the nutrient density, their lifestyle, and then, what are they doing in their day-to-day life from a stress perspective. Does that kind of summarize it up?
Yeah, it just intrigues me that, people come in and they get a teenager with hormone issues gets put on the pill because that's what they think is the right thing for a skin condition, or someone's told to take certain medications. And what I don't understand, and I'm wondering if you and Cindy can answer this, or Cindy, how come when a medical practitioner who studies this, who studies the body, and they obviously do a lot of study around from a cellular level, and they get to understand the intricacies of the pathways that you're talking about, and they obviously get to understand the different systems in the bodies, and then my understanding is that if they choose to, they can go off and specialize in a certain area. Cindy, maybe you can help us. Just like, how come they don't think on this level that you as a nutritionist and Suzi as a naturopath thinks? What happens? Where does it go askew that they're not thinking about the pathways, the individual, or the systems together?
Well, I think it's because it's their paradigm, and they're taught in that paradigm. And the paradigm that they're taught in is a very mechanistic view. So they're taught diagnose and treat. They're brilliant at understanding how to diagnose and how to treat. And you cannot deny the amount of study that those guys do. I know quite a few medical doctors, and I'm watching interns and junior registrars, and I look at the stress they're under and what they're studying, but they are taught that food has nothing to do with body. They do any nutrition. They don't have a vitalistic paradigm about it. They just look at, okay, well, there's something wrong with the heart, go to a cardiologist. There's something wrong with the gut, go to a gastroenterologist. And, once upon a time it was, antibiotics saved us from many, many diseases. And then we thought, well, if it saves us from that, let's use it all the time. I think it's that paradigm of diagnosis and treatment. And when you diagnose, it means two people who don't know. That's what the root term of diagnosis means. And treatment means treating the mind. So when you consider the root name of these words, we're in a pretty bad position there. For me, I live by a vitalistic point of view. I look at the body as a whole and exactly what Suzi's doing. What are the connections? What's happening around us? How are we thinking? And I think if we start to teach this back in school now, of all the really ridiculous stuff that our education system is doing, we might see a turnaround in how people are viewing not only how they think, what they put into their mouth, their connections in life, and bring back culture and bring back to traditions. What do our young children do now to initiate themselves into adulthood? They go down to the Gold Coast and they get pissed and they drink and have lots of sex and drugs, and that's their initiation into adulthood. I just find it we're completely whacked over at the moment, and people need to start going, we've got to do this differently, or we're just going to end up with more and more young people with self-images that are so poor. And I really think that understanding, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but understanding self-image now is understanding how much you like yourself. Because when you like yourself, even the smallest things aren't going to peeve you off. But Suzi, you talk about this, because I love how you think, and I think you think a little bit more clinically than I do, but I'd love to hear what you believe with this.
Yeah, well, so that's just, so I have another little personal story to tell. So last year I had my little boy, Elijah, and after that, it was interesting. During the pregnancy, I didn't actually put on much weight, thanks to a lot of morning sickness. But after he came, I don't know what happened, but I put on lot of weight. I put on about 8 kilos, and that happened within a couple of months. And it just kind of, it kept going on. And it wasn't until, when was it? About November that I kind of went, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And I felt it was because I was, looking in the mirror and really feeling disgusted with what I seen. Last night on Embrace, they were explaining, she had her baby and that her tummy felt so jelly. I just remember when he came out, that, and I was saying to him, I remember this feeling, like I would my stomach and I felt like I could feel my ribs. But anyway, I had a lot of self-hate kind of going on. And it was last year, it was around November that I went, I can't do this anymore. And I was still eating well. I still ate pretty much just as well as what I always had. I just feel like maybe I wasn't moving enough, and my thought processes just kind of went a little bit out the window. Generally, I'm a glass half person, but I was a glass half empty person last year. And then once I started changing my thought processes, it was amazing that I wanted to start moving out of, exercising out of the love of my body, as opposed to I have to do this because I have to lose weight. And when you come from a place of really, truly honoring your body for what it is, that's when you start really nurturing it. And that's when you start going, yep, I know that I need to eat this because this is what my body needs. And I feel as a result of that, a big weight lifted off my shoulder. And from I have to go down the biochemical pathway, my cortisol probably dropped, because my cortisol must have been so incredibly high last year. And that would, really explain a lot of the weight gain and the fluid retention that I experienced. So I really feel that, like I was saying before, that looking at those 3 areas, how you're living, how you're thinking, and how you're eating, so important.
I agree. So what would you say then to someone who was on a new journey, or they've had a health challenge in whatever way, be it hormones or gut or any kind of challenge where they're not sure what to do? Do you guys all think that people are starting to focus on looking at a naturopath first, or do people still believe that they have to get the diagnosis and the first point of call is a doctor and then go looking? And the other part of that question, Suzi, what number along the line are you before someone does come and see you? Sometimes, you're the last person I've seen kind of thing. Tell us that.
Yep. I always have a little joke with clients about this. Is a kind of like, they say, and we say it like as a lovingly joke to each other. I can kind of tell they're like, you are the last person that I'm going to see. I obviously wouldn't say it when somebody's quite sensitive about it. They're like, you're the last person, no pressure, you have to fix me. I've been to 10 people before. And I'll say, that's fine. I'm used to being the last resort. I'm used to being the last one loved. But it's quite interesting. We are usually the last place where people go. I kind of wish that we were at the beginning of the line or near the beginning of the line. I guess the way that I really work and with our practitioners in the clinic, what we're really passionate about, actually connecting with the medical world. I don't feel that a lot of the time that I am the right person for the person, and maybe they do need to see a specialist to get that sort of diagnosis happening. But yeah, we usually are at the very end of the line. And I wish that we were at the beginning. And so many people, they'll kind of be like, oh, I wish that, I had come to you a really long time ago. But it's what you always say, Kim, you don't know what you don't know. I'm pretty sure that's you that says that.
Yeah, what we don't know. Well, it's not mine. I can say, honestly, I stole it. But yes, I do say it a lot.
Well, you say it a lot. Yeah, so I guess you don't know what you don't know. And so that's essentially why the education side of things and getting out there and communicating with people, what they can do to better their health. And it's not just a one-step Band-Aid sort of approach.
I think what's wonderful about your clinic is you have a psychologist, have you got nutritionists? Tell us who you've got in your clinic and why.
Yeah, we've got 5 naturopaths, and we all work in different areas. I kind of refer to myself as a I am a generalist, but my main area is digestion, and it's purely because the gut you can link to pretty much every single illness and disease. It's really the foundation of good health. So each practitioner has their own area that they really work in, but they view the body as a whole. It's going back to what I was saying before, that three-step methodology. I do believe that psychology and counselling has a place. We have a nutritionist and a dietitian as well, and it's quite interesting when people ask, why do you have a nutritionist and a dietitian? Because they're both very different. And it's because the dietitian that we have, she's very open-minded and very respectful of what we do. And for some people, it acts as a really good stepping stone to that whole foods approach. So if we can get somebody to say, I don't know, eat 2 cups of vegetables instead of eating just a cob of corn, well, that's one step in the right direction, and then we can step them up from there. So yeah, I feel that I just wanted to have this place where people could come and have, all their needs addressed. And with the physical aspect of it, we've got a fantastic network of doctors that we work quite closely with, and acupuncturists and osteopaths. So they're all outside of our clinic, but we've got this really beautiful relationship going on with them. And the doctors, as a naturopath, people often think that I am against doctors or against the whole medical world. I'm definitely not, and I have a lot of respect for them. There's some amazing GPs out there, and on the Sunshine Coast, we're so fortunate that there is a fair bit of them. So I work quite closely with them to really kind of get the biggest picture possible of the person.
It's really interesting, Kim. At the beginning, you mentioned about, I think, Suzi, you said, when we know what we can do better. I was at a movie over the weekend. It was called Collisions. It was a documentary based on a young Aboriginal boy who was at Maralinga when the bomb went off. Had never seen white man, didn't know what the bomb was. So it was absolutely amazing, and it ended like this. It ended with, as we know better, we can do better. It's what we do with that knowledge that will make the difference. And I think as we learn more, and what you've been talking about, as we learn more, it's what we do. And this is what's happening, is it spoke about the fact that you're the last person they come to, when in actual fact we should be the first port of call. But what I'm finding, and you probably know that this is happening, Suzi, is that there's a real push against natural therapies here in Australia. And, the Friends of Science are trying to push these beautiful, integrative doctors. We've seen that Dr. Gary Fedke has had the gag order, although that's been lifted. So we have these beautiful integrative doctors that are really trying to push against the system and are struggling. And then we have people like you, naturopaths, homeopaths, chiropractors, all in a situation where their very livelihood is being affected. And I've been talking to many of these chiropractors who are saying that their practices are not going as well as they used to. Now, for some, I'm not hearing this, but for others, I am. So how do we, make a change in the psyche of the people so that we can be the first port of call? To me, it's about, let's find balance. Let's not find a diagnosis and treat with a drug, because when, like you talked about before, the metabolism, our biochemistry is one thing affects the next. And so you think that you're giving a statin drug and cholesterol is the only thing being affected, but there is such a huge knock-on effect. And the same goes for integrative medicine as well, and naturopathy. We give one single vitamin, and how do we not know the knock-on effect from our metabolism? Like, it's so many loop backs, and then we find genes. So I guess what I'm asking, Suzi, is how do we change the psyche of the people, number one? How do we integrate 2 different paradigms together in order to benefit the population
and to help these, these people that have such poor body images of themselves, number one, and such poor health, number two.
Yeah, very, very tricky question. I guess that's where the whole, the education comes from, or comes in, I should say. I feel, or the way that I kind of think about it is the whole, if you think about ants, so one ant is harmless, but if there's millions of ants there, they're going to eat your whole pantry. So with every single person that you're changing, when you're changing their life, changing the way that they're eating, changing the way that they're living, changing the way they're thinking, that has a bit of a flow-on effect, so the compound effect. So I feel it really goes back to, getting out there and educating people and doing things like what you did, Cindy, and, creating that documentary, and then people start questioning it. And, I feel the more that you put the power in the person's hands, I really feel that that's the best way forward. There is definitely a scary side to the natural therapy industry. I mean, the scary side as in a lot of people are really fearful of really what's happening to it. I don't know, maybe I'm operating in a bit of ignorance is bliss mode. I don't know, but I try as much as I can to not come from that place. I really just try and think about what can I do to make the biggest change, to then hopefully at some point be able to change it, going back to that whole, the ant approach. So the more people that we can change, we can educate. I really believe that there's power when a lot of people really start questioning and changing their minds and changing the way that they're eating. It's like, in the supermarket, like there's starting to get so much more organic food because that's what people want. So once they start catching on to that this is what people want, I'm hoping that makes a really big difference. But like I said, I hope I'm not living in the ignorance is bliss kind of world.
No, I think that was a brilliant answer. And I guess it is just about you working in your own little area and educating and making an awareness of what's happening and trying to, as best we can, get that education in there so somebody may act on that education and do something with it. And we are seeing that. We're seeing it in our social media. We're seeing it everywhere. But, yeah, I think that was a very good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with another naturopath yesterday, and we were talking about, being able to introduce holistic healing into the education of existing naturopathic students, and including, mindset and, the psychological contributors to health and well-being. And she was actually saying that that there's a possibility that you will have to do you'll have to go to university in order to study naturopathy. And even that now is a possibility that they won't be doing any naturopathic studies anymore, with the whole push out of alternative medicines, that unless it has a science degree as its basis, there will be no such thing as a naturopathy a course or study line. I mean, how does it affect?
Yeah, well, so as it currently is, that's the way that it's kind of going, that you need to do that science degree linked with complementary medicine. And I kind of I feel for all the amazing naturopaths that, that bachelor wasn't there. I kind of, when that all came out, it was almost like they were belittling all the other natural therapists who have a degree. You can be an amazing practitioner and be incredibly knowledgeable and have no degree. Like, I love that I did all of this studying, but there's lots of people out there who know just as much as me and they don't have the piece of paper to show it. So, yeah, in that way, I guess you could look at it as a positive and a negative. If they're doing a science degree, they are getting into that whole the in detail biochemistry, but essentially, so that has a positive in the way that we're starting to link with the medical world. But I have a little bit worried that then the whole, the naturopathic side of things will be lost, because there was a huge difference between my science degree and my naturopathy studies. They were totally different. So I do kind of get worried with the new naturopaths that are coming out is how, in the way that we practice and what's worked for so long, how is it going to change in the future?
So what were the differences then when, as you say, there was such a massive difference between what you studied in science and what you studied in naturopathy? What's the difference when it comes to the actual treatment of the patient?
I guess when we did the naturopathic studies, who you're learning physiology from, they're a naturopath. And so when you're explaining the physiology, you don't just they're also then explaining the connection between the different systems and the different organs. When you do the biomedical degree, it's like blood pressure comes from here and then that's it. So that I'm sure that with the people who are studying the bachelor, of course they're still going to learn about that connection. But I kind of feel about the food approach to it as well might be very different. So in university, the nutrition that I learned was very different to the nutrition that I learned as part of the naturopathic degree. And if you do say like a naturopath's degree at, there's some really fantastic colleges around, like in Brisbane, there's a really good one that does a nutrition course and it's looking at the person as a whole. But where I did my science degree, they also did dietetics. And so a lot of the nutrition subjects that naturopaths could potentially be studying in the future may be also dietetics based. So that's where it's kind of it's different.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting to know. It's interesting to explore where that whole alternative therapy is go with that kind of foundation.
I think people who go into naturopathy have a bit of a philosophy that's over and above what they're going to be learning in the sciences, because that's where I went. I did my Bachelor of Science majoring in nutrition, about to do dietetics, and this is the early 80s. I could decipher what I felt was right or wrong because of a philosophy, and I think that that's what's missing. I think that that's the biggest thing of all that's missing in our universities is that philosophy, naturopathy or homeopathy or Ayurvedic medicine or chiropractic or nutrition. That philosophy is missing and that understanding, because when you do not have a philosophy, you are going to be pushed here, there and everywhere with whatever science is out there. And a lot of science we see now is driven, is we're looking down through the eye of the needle. And as my beautiful Dr. Steve Myers, who wrote my education program, said, is that 90% of science is incorrect, but it leads us to the 10% that gives us the greatest discoveries. And we have to learn to decipher, well, what does this mean? How is this done? And I think that that's really important, is understanding that whole science. And I guess that's why I did my education program, was to help people navigate their way through anything that they were doing. So, for instance, my daughter did my nutrition degree and then decided to go to Endeavour College and become a nutritionist. She's doing medical nutrition or nutritional medicine, I think it's called.
Yeah.
But she's got that base. And if we can instill that base, I think we may have some hope here. Suzi, your philosophy, what was your philosophy when you were doing naturopathy and knowing that you had science and then going to naturopathy? What ended up being, did you switch? Did you change? What happened?
Well, I looking back at my childhood years, I guess because I spent so much time in hospital, I truly don't believe that I would be here without the medical world. I mean, you could go down the path of antibiotics and steroids, probably made the whole problem a lot worse. But essentially, I do actually have a lot of gratitude, or I have to give thanks to them for what they did for me. So I guess maybe it goes back to that was what was is that they really helped me, and so that was why I wanted to go down that path. Even though I loved nutrition and I loved like having my veggie garden and I loved making my own face creams and that sort of thing. Like I loved all of that, but I felt that, that I wanted to just go this other way, and that was the only way that you could help people or make a really big change, was to go down the biomedical path. So I guess it was like a big light bulb moment halfway through that degree when I went, you know what, I don't have to do this. I can really do it. I can do it another way. So it wasn't the reason that I'm passionate about that fusion of the medical and the natural is a sense I feel that was kind of, it's been part of my journey. And I really do want to have that bridge. Some people, when they come in, they'll say openly that they're incredibly skeptical, that they only came because they've seen that, that we're happy to work along with doctors. That really excites me. When someone actually says they come in and they say they're skeptical, I'm right. Like, I love a challenge. And so then, and I know that I have to work that bit harder to really, educate them and, teach them that this is more of this is a lifestyle. Like, this is not just come here, fix this and leave. This is essentially a lifestyle, and I am okay for you to see your doctor if you want, and I am okay to do up referral letters and look at the pathology results with your doctor. I'm all right with that, but essentially let's make you the best that you can. So yeah, I really want to try and be as open as possible with everybody that I can. Absolutely no judgment, and essentially it goes back to what really helped me.
Suzi, I just want to ask you also, just finishing out, as a mum and now having watched Embrace, and now as a practitioner, as someone who has had her own health conditions, her own body image issues, what would be your messages to the generation that is coming up behind it? How would you impart all the things you've learned, and what's the key fundamentals to you when it comes to loving who we are?
I guess it's, that whole, really, it sounds so kind of corny, embracing yourself, loving yourself and, looking at, everything that what you're doing in your life and what you're eating, is what you're eating, is it either, is it adding money to your health bank account, or is it, taking out money? That's kind of, I seen this meme the other day and I was like, love it. I love that. I'm going to explain that to clients. So, everything that you eat either has a positive or a negative effect in the body. Every relationship that you have with a person has a positive or a negative. Every activity that you do has a positive or a negative. So really, I guess it's just question what you're doing. Are you doing things that you enjoy doing? Are you eating food that is nourishing? Are you thinking in a way that is it positive? Is it worth thinking, when you look in the mirror, is it worth thinking? Is it worth thinking negatively? Everybody has amazing qualities about themselves, but for some unknown reason, a lot of the time when we look at ourselves, we come from a glass half empty rather than a glass half full. So that's really my advice. So look at it from a glass half full and, question everything in health.
Tell us, my darling, you run workshops. We've done workshops together. We even have our own Embrace workshop coming up soon. That people can go to both our 28 website and yours. But can you tell us how people can get hold of you? And do you do Skype consults, and can people contact you and connect with you that way?
Yes, yeah. So about 30% of our clients are actually rural, interstate and overseas. So we do Skype and phone consultations. You can follow us on Facebook, Integrated Wellness Clinic, or I've got my own page where I post a lot of random photos of me and my little boy. And that's Suzi Lefanu, naturopath.
He's adorable
otherwise
too.
Just check out on the web. Thanks.
Oh, and you're on Facebook, I'm assuming.
Can't help but showing them off. Yes. Suzi Lefanu, naturopath.
Oh, you're gorgeous. And tell us, darling, is there anything else you would love our beautiful Up for a Chat listeners? You're going out to, I don't know, Karen, how many listeners do we have following us now? How many is Suzi going out to?
2.5 million.
Stop it.
Wow.
Stop it.
Pressure. Oh, no
we might
pressure.
do this. I thought there'd be like one person listening.
Oh. And you know what? Our listeners are such a beautiful breed of souls, and they are really, I'm sure they will absolutely love you. But is there anything else you would love to impart to our listeners as our time comes to a close?
No, not really. Maybe, just if you happen to be on the Sunshine Coast, have a look at all the events that we're doing. So on the Integrated Wellness Clinic event page, subscribe to that, and we're doing events. And as Kim said, 20 an Embrace workshop. So Embrace is a fantastic film, and it's all about empowerment, but this is about, the tools that you can put into your day-to-day life, whether that is Kim's beautiful body boost routine, or if it's, making delicious raw treats to, really nourish those hormones. But no, that's it. Question everything. Love yourself. Once you start loving yourself, everything changes.
It sure does. It sure does. Cindy, did you have anything else you wanted to ask this gorgeous being? Because I know you've loved her as much as we have, you two girls.
No, we could talk forever, because there's just so much to talk about in this genre, and I feel like we didn't really get into this poor body image that we're seeing. And I know, and I guess that's the question: do we need to say anything more about this, Karen or Suzi? To me, and you, Kim,
I think we do.
Yeah,
I think we do. I think that there's a lot more that needs to be explored when it comes to the body image, and I think that it's as much a psychological issue as it is a physical issue, and I think it's a societal issue. And whether we would solve all of the problems, I'm up for a chat, I don't know, but I think that we could bring a new level of awareness and understanding so that the mums who are listening to the show have more tools in their kit bag to deal with their teenage girls. And then also for any teenage girls who are listening to the shows, yeah, definitely. Because there's been a huge shift in terms of how comfortable our boys are inside of their own skin. I think that there's a whole show in it. I really do. I think, yeah.
I agree. And I think we should commit to making it a topic, and maybe if any of our listeners want to put in any questions around that, maybe we'll do that in a couple of weeks' time, so that it'll give people time. And, of course, if anybody has any questions for Suzi, then they can obviously also do that directly with her. But I think you're right, girls. There's a whole topic in this, and there's a lot. And after watching the film, Suzi, I'm sure, you and I both had tears in our eyes last night listening to the way some of these women spoke about themselves. We were horrified on one level. We were also very aware on another level. We're also conscious that, we all do it on a daily basis, perhaps looking at ourselves. But I guess the key thing for me is, and I'm so grateful for, is it's always from a health point of view. It's how do I feel today, not how do I look today. And usually how I feel relates to how I look. So if I haven't slept well, you'll see the bags, and then I go, okay, cool, thank you, body. I guess my reaction to that movie last night was, wow, I'm so grateful I have a mindset that goes, you're not looking your best. I don't go into I hate you. I go into, geez, you have been working a lot lately. Your adrenals have been under the pump. Let's go and let's have a good day today. And I'm so grateful for that mindset. So I think it would be cool to explore that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that today's podcast has been insightful, intriguing, and also I think it's left us with a whole other avenue to explore. So, Suzi, thank you for opening up Pandora's box and diving in there with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been an absolute treat. Now, for all of our listeners, you can find Suzi, talk to her. You can find her on her webpage, which is integratedwellnessclinic.com.au. Now, I personally, just so that everybody knows, I have made myself a 15-minute appointment for Thursday at 10 o'clock.
Hey, Karen, I can tell you are going to love the way Suzi, and I'm not just blowing smoke, I swear to you, the way she goes down the microscope, the way she looks at every single avenue, and you walk out of there feeling empowered. You don't walk out of there going, I've got a whole lot of pills, I've got a whole lot of tablets, I've got a whole lot of it's not just swapping the orthodox methodology across to the naturopathic methodology. I love Cindy's way of thinking. Cindy, I love you too, beautiful girl. But I love Suzi's way of thinking and approaching this amazing. So good on you, girlfriend. I love you. I can't wait to hear what you think.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm all about? I'm all about giving things a red hot nudge. And I see you've got Vanessa, who's part of your team as well. And Vanessa and I are great friends.
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah. Well, I know her partner really well. And so I met her through Ben. Yeah. Anyway.
I was at Embrace last night photographing.
Oh, bugger. I wish I'd been.
Well, we actually sold out, so.
Well, there you go. Well, that, if anything, is evidence as to how much this is at the forefront of people's mind in society these days, the fact that you would sell out to a showing like that. So good on you.
It was great.
All of our listeners, we hope that you've loved today's podcast as much as we have. Go to integratedwellnessclinic.com.au and make a Skype time now to have a chat with Suzi or one of her team. You can also go to our Facebook page at allthews.facebook.com/up-for-a-chat, or you can go to allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/up-for-a-chat. Post your comments and your questions for Suzi and for our next episode when we do dive down the rabbit hole on body image for boys and girls and also for adults, because I think what starts in our teenage years or our younger years continues because it becomes a habituated way of thinking and being. So let's get your questions and let's get your comments around that topic so that we can start to build a show that's going to be specifically around what you need. Now, I also want to make sure that you guys are right across our trips to New Zealand and our trips to Africa. The website is live. We are taking bookings. We have got a few spots left in New Zealand, and we've got 6 spots left for Africa. So go to allthews.awakenthechangewithin.com. Now, everything that you need to make your decision about joining us will be right there. Click on the links, grab your copy of the itinerary. You'll also have the invitation to actually sign up and start your payment plan right there on the website. So you don't have to wait. You can get your spot secured. I've got to say, I am absolutely floored. Since we launched this website a week ago, we have been absolutely flooded with people booking to join us on these trips. So please, guys, whatever you do, don't hold back, but don't wait. Don't wait for another moment. If you're interested in joining Kim, Cindy, and myself, trekking through the magical mountains of New Zealand, experiencing absolutely wonderful wineries, spectacular food, and stunning sensations, and really getting up close and personal with each one of us, all of your questions answered, and to spend some really intense time, this is the way. And if you're interested in coming to Africa and having a life-changing experience, there will be nothing else that you could ever experience like it. And the upside is you know that you'll be going to Africa in the safest possible hands, experiencing some of the most extraordinary outback experiences with animals and some of the most rugged countryside, where Cindy's going to take us back to our roots of where we all started and what it takes to live fulfilled and healthy lives, coming right back to where we all started. So join us, allthews.awakenthechangewithin.com. Make sure that you go to that website now and get your spot secured. We're going to see you here next time on Up for a Chat, where you become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. And we are going to see you on the ride. Bye for now, everybody.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.